This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
When you unleash the peak performance of your people, you will have an accelerated, high-performing, high-achieving company. Writing a brief for each one of your leaders, for every one of your employees, is the shortest path to achieving your highest outcome.
One of my absolute favorite people is back today. It's true. It's true because you can't not walk away not learning something new. No pressure, by the way, Bonnie. Like learning something new or like something reflective or something that you missed about yourself. And maybe that's the blessing and the curse of the world we came from, right? Like you can't help but always be looking and you're trying to add value. It's not like poke, 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 poke. You're just trying to add value. But Bonnie Wan, like, do you feel at all that in some eerie, crazy way, we've both sort of run similar lives and made choices at different times that have brought us to this moment? Yes, no? Agree?
Yes, parallel lives. There's not even sliding doors. I think we just really followed the same path without intersecting. That's the shocking part, is why we did not intersect earlier.
Well, did you? I think you took the West Coast and I took the East Coast. I thought that was the deal.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Right. It's not a small country, but no, but when we finally did run into each other, it's cool to see, like, I came to my own conclusions and mine were not so conclusive. It was messy.
It's
And
always
you,
messy. That's what we share. But I think we landed in the same place, which is courage.
and also the need to change and trusting yourself when it's time to
Yeah.
make a move. I ran into something that you had written, and I think you actually wrote about it when you launched your book, which was Words of the Lifeblood of Strategy.
Mm.
And it's so funny. I keep coming back to another book I just read, which is Burn the Boats by Matt Higgins. And again, I want to be careful of this because it's not, I love the book, but I loved even more that I was sitting on a beach in Cabo and finally had a moment where my kids were in the water by themselves and didn't need me. And I could just take a pen and highlight and underline all the things, which is how I do books. And something that I wrote, and it's funny, I wrote it and then I stumbled into your line later. So to be clear, it wasn't like, it's like, wow, here we go. We're back on parallel lives. I wrote language is leadership,
Beautiful. It is true.
right? And it's like, that's kind of when I think about what we do, it's getting through the fog and helping leadership realize how much words actually matter.
Yes. And there's an art to the precision of language that I think we grew up learning and practicing, and I don't want to say perfecting, but really cultivating the art of it. Because it's not just about the words, it's about the precision, the brevity, the concision of the words, the choice.
Why does this seem to get missed? Is it just we're living in such an absurdly overwhelming world, or is it a lack of awareness? And again, this is not to knock or vilify leaders. It's just the reality of they're juggling. They're trying to inspire their team and they got to hit their numbers and they've got a board meeting coming up and they've got to, by the way, pick up their kids at 2 p.m. And like, is it just the reality of all of the above?
Well, let's stay in the realm of leadership because then I think it's an easier frame to talk within, because there are some incredible communicators in the world, artists and writers, and I still love um, honoring the craft of it in all kinds of spaces. But I think my experience with leaders is that the more they say, the less they actually know. It's kind of a cover up, right? When we become very verbose and we start talking in swirls or in hyperboles or in cliches, it's actually my first signal that this leader doesn't have a vision or doesn't have a path forward for its people.
Well, I'm just terrified for myself as a leader because I'm verbose, Bonnie. I mean, should I get my team on here and be like, how verbose am I, folks?
I think you are incredibly poetic. And I think when you land a thought, it's beautifully put. You might be verbose, Ryan, but it's all purposeful.
Hey, I wasn't fishing for compliments this morning, but I'm going to take it. And this concludes this episode of the podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining. So you have a big week this week. And I know this is going to air, just so you know, this is going to air next Thursday, folks.
Okay.
So imagine we went in a time machine and we went back a week. Because your week will actually have been concluded, I believe, at this point. But you're heading down to Santa Fe, New Mexico, yes?
I am.
Where are you going? What are you doing?
I'm teaching at Chip Conley's Modern Elder Academy, which I am so excited to do. And I had the gift and privilege of being there 3 weeks ago. It's a beautiful, not even beautiful, it is a stunning, vast, 2,600-acre ranch in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And what you realize as soon as you arrive is that the desert is vast and the sky is bigger than anywhere else. It goes on forever.
It's I have to be careful with this because it's going to sound like I know Chip better than I do. I probably have a combined. Well, that's not fair because I did spend a week with Chip at Modern Elder Academy down at the Mexico, not the New
Baja.
Mexico, the actual in Baja, and really got to know him. And like you, my curiosity for going down there was it was almost like 70%. Could I teach courage here? And 30%, who am I going to meet? Who am I going to meet, right? And I almost fully discounted the magic of it all, which was that I'm going to be under the spotlight and I'm going to learn something about myself. So for one, folks, if you have not checked out Modern Elder Academy, it's a wisdom school. Where elder came from is that Chip Conley was he was branded the elder, I'm air quoting, as he helped the guys at Airbnb figure out that model. And then parlay is a big word, but he came from hospitality. He basically took his hospitality background and then what he learned at Airbnb and realized like there's no midlife wisdom school. And a lot of us are trying to figure out who the heck we are. And so here we go. He took all of that, threw it in a mosaic, now has 2 locations. I've never not met somebody like that I just absolutely love. Like you go down there and I'm not surprised that you're teaching there.
He is so genuine, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this because I think he's been very public about it. But when I saw him last down in Santa Fe, he was just about to hit his third round of radiation for prostate cancer. And he had just lost his mom. So we literally ended on Monday and he had his memorial on Tuesday for his mom and then started radiation on Thursday. So I felt incredibly fortunate to be able to spend that time with him. But it's interesting the modern elder story because he resisted that moniker at Airbnb when they first gave it to him. He was called the modern elder and he said, wait a second, I don't want to be the old guy. But it just was a really respectful way to acknowledge his experience, his deep, deep experience in hospitality and understanding spaces and caring for people and creating experiences. And then eventually he came to embrace it. And now MEA, Modern Elder Academy, they're questioning whether to keep the definition as elder. And I think that it really speaks to our culture's resistance to aging.
I mean, tricky battle. I get it, right? The marketer in me wants to go and say, okay, why would that be your first inning message, right? Is it a do they rebrand as Modern Wisdom Academy? I could totally see, or midlife, something that has a little less friction to it. The truth is, you're spot on. Like that there's a realness to it.
Yeah, and my argument is that he has revolutionized, or maybe that's too hyperbolized, but he is really changing how we think about aging by using that in such a modern way. And I think we need that in our society, right? We have a tendency. Here's another perfect example of this. At this year's Met Gala, Bad Bunny, whose brand I get to work on with Adidas, which is so amazing, but he showed up at the Met Gala dressed as an 84-year-old, right? And that was so unexpected and surprising, and that too was a cultural comment on how much we chase youth in our culture and how much we resist aging. And I thought that was just such a huge cultural moment for an artist as big and famous and now as Benito to come out and with that kind of message so publicly.
And I this is why I love our conversations, because I've already like, oh, I like that. I want to write about this. But you're right. We do chase youth. And really, what I think Modern Elder Academy forces you to do is to chase you, not
Yes.
youth.
So see,
Right. And hey,
that's what you do well.
well, you're on record saying, just to put this into Bonnie Wan language, right? Like most people are living someone else's brief, right? They're not
Mhm.
living their own life brief. They aren't chasing you. They are chasing youth or somebody else or someone that they think they should be. And I think that's really what Modern Elder Academy is all about, is it sort of forces you with a smile on its face to look at yourself and decide, who are you and what do you want to be as you continue to grow up, right?
Yeah.
That's my take on it. And so
And that's the essence of wisdom.
when you go down there on the life, like again, are you teaching the life brief?
I
Is that
am.
what the,
I'm
so give me,
teaching how to find your fuck yes.
okay, you have my attention.
Well, I think, it's such a short period of time. It's really concentrated. So rather than write an entire brief, it's really helping people take advantage of the nature, right? The vastness of the desert and the desert sky. The awe that comes with being in that kind of container, essentially not contained,
Totally.
to give themselves permission to think as expansively and as courageously as they can about their own lives, any part of their lives that's calling for their attention. But what does fuck yes mean? And what would it mean? Why does it matter to live a fuck yes life, right? And you can't do that if you're living out someone else's script. But most people don't feel that they have the permission to go there, to ask themselves that question. Or they think it's dangerous because it'll only set them up for disappointment or disruption or hurting the other people in their lives, right? Or we simply are too distracted, too busy, too occupied with the things that are our daily habits to create the spaciousness to think about that. And there's nowhere better than the desert or the ocean or the beach to think about what fuck yes really could mean.
I mean, what I hear is there's no better place than now to start working on that and to not bury it, right? Now, remember that time we were talking on the podcast and you said, Ryan, don't be verbose unless it's poetic. And I'm not saying this is poetic, but it will be verbose. So, folks, if you haven't listened to Bonnie before, she's been on the podcast before. We when her book came out, the life brief came out, we went through that and where it comes from as strategists in this world. You constantly are writing briefs for brands and we're not doing it for ourselves. And it's so funny, Bonnie, like I very recently have said on the leadership side, on the coaching side of our leaders, I'm like, you spend all this money on a brand standard and brand guidelines. Here's how you shouldn't use our logo. Here's how you shouldn't use our logo. Here's how you shouldn't use our logo. Line cross, line cross, line cross. And you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these brand standard books. But the very leader asked to activate that book has spent no money and no time getting clear on how they want to show up and how they should show up as a leader. That is the work that Bonnie does. She's helping you come up with your own, very own life brief so you can go live out that adventure. If you haven't listened to our first podcast, go back about 100 episodes or so, and we go into detail on that. If I actually haven't written a life brief, and I want to do that with you at some point, so I'm just putting it out there.
I would love that. Ryan,
Okay, can we?
I think you lived
please?
a life brief, frankly, but I would love to actually write it down.
No, let's do it, and I will come to you. I mean, again, I should have come and support you down in Santa Fe, and I tried.
You'll
to
get
make it
another
happen,
chance.
but I want to. And I do agree with you that I am trying to design a life that honors the life brief, but I want to do it the right way. You know, when I think about Chip Conley, I wonder, because I feel similar, and I don't want to put anything on Chip. He has lived 10 lives. He has lived a full life. I wonder if he has any, I don't know, regrets, trauma. Like when I think about my life, I feel like if I die tomorrow, I'm not trying to put anything into the universe, but if I die tomorrow, I am so at peace with choices I made, how I've designed this life. I found a word that I love. I found a word that allows me to stay moving forward. I wonder for me, do I feel failure or do I feel success or do I fear success? And I'm curious for you as you now are in this next version of you, do you fear failure or do you fear success or do you not see it that way at all?
That's a really good question. If I were to be incredibly honest, it depends on the day, right? When I'm in my most doubtful moments, I fear not necessarily failure or success. I fear not having the impact that I want to have. Though I do have a firm belief that any impact is worthwhile and is successful. It's rich, it's meaningful. But I think there is an impatience in my soul about reaching as many people as I can, waking them up to the fact that they have more choice, more agency, more possibility than they've been conditioned to have. And we're in an age where people, meaning leaders, governments, corporations, want us to stay in our swim lanes, put our heads down, work on survival, because it feeds power. Power is bigger and more in control if people believe that they only have one or two choices, right? If we all woke up to our agency, and the fact that we could create beautiful lives, beautiful families, beautiful communities, we could dream bigger, we can dream more creatively, more expansively, then power would be fucked.
Well, there you go. I mean, fuck yes, right? I mean, is this the session? Is this the end on the last day where you unveil that? Hey, let me play the other side of this for one sec too, right? Like you can make a case that, and I'm not here to say that I should be one that should go for it and you shouldn't, but wouldn't it be ultimate chaos if everybody went for it?
I don't think so. Because what I've learned in doing this for 16 years now, working with other people, when people get to their fuck yes, truly, it is so generous. It is so human. It is so kind. What people want at the very, very inner core is to be helpful, be useful, be seen, be understood, be valued. And those all come with connection and belonging. Not They're not selfish means. They're not greedy. The greediness is not who you are at your core. And I've not seen a fuck yes be something that terrifies me, right? It's something that always puts me in a state of awe, like, wow, realizing that would make everything better.
So, how do we help you help more people? Like, I mean, are we cloning you? Is it get the word out? I mean, I feel like the life brief alone can help a lot of companies too. I think these are like, talk to me, like, where do you feel like, again, maybe just being on the podcast, people are going to listen to this, but what else can we do?
Well, leaders are a really good way to do it. I believe that leaders who understand performance is what drives outcomes for their companies, and that human performance is so important. And that when you unleash the peak performance of your people through clarity, through acknowledgement, through agency, you will have an accelerated, high performing, high achieving company. And the leaders who recognize that can see that writing a brief for each one of your leaders, for every one of your employees, is that path, the shortest path to achieving your highest outcome as a company. Rather than burying them in a whole bunch of gobbledygook from a performance review, give them a brief for the next 12 to 18 months, what they are expected, the audacious leap that they need to make, where they can take their strengths and their superpowers and their high purpose skills and put them into greater effect for the company. That's where leaders can really take advantage of this. And I think companies are the place, I talked about governments and corporations, and I talk about that in the abstract, right? In the collective. But there are so many important companies who can have outsized impact if they can really harness their human workforce and take them to peak performance.
Well, one, now I'm putting more work on me, but I'd like to do this with my team. So, I mean, we're not a big team. We're 8 people. But when you share what you just shared, where I go first is, do I really have total clarity of what everybody's fuck yes is on my team? This is a new brand for you. We got Life Brief, and
Yeah.
now we got the fuck yes brief. But I want to make sure that I'm creating the conditions where my team, everyone on my team, has a chance to like achieve the thing they want to achieve, and then I'm putting them in a position to do so. And so I guess this is a roundabout way of saying I'm curious which comes first: me writing a brief that gives them permission to write their brief, or are they writing their briefs and then presenting them back up? What does that look
It's
like?
a two-way street, right? It's always a conversation and a multi-way conversation, but you have to start with what is your vision? What is your ambition, for the company? And that is a really pinpointed place for everyone else in the company to start their briefs. Because the question is not like, me as an employee, what do I want to do? What do I love doing? Those are really important, but it has to be framed by your company ambition, the organization's ambition first. Because then from that point, I get to look at my strengths as an employee and say, well, how can I help us achieve that ambition through the thing that I know I bring that is distinct from everyone else with my same title, everyone else at my same level, everyone else, right, in my department. What do I bring that is distinct? And if I amplified and accelerated that, I can take us to this ambition so fast, so beautifully, so cleanly. So it's really the intersection, right, of the organization's audacious ambition with the personal, the individual's sense of purpose and joy and fuck yes.
So when somebody comes down to see you at Modern Elder, or they hire you and it's the same period of time, just humor me for a minute and say, especially next week, what are you hoping they leave with? Because if it's an expedited sort of run at it, do you think, are you like, hey, realistically, we can get there? You're in this beautiful place. Or you're like, I'm going to be realistic. Like, here's where we're going to get after 4 or 5 days together, or 3 or 4 days together.
I want them to have practiced for 3 days. Permission, giving themselves permission to be honest with themselves about what they want. For them to have practiced tuning in to desire and pleasure, because that's the heartbeat of vision. What can you see? What can you taste? What do you want to taste? And that comes from the smallest choices when we get up in the morning, how we want to spend those first 10 minutes. It comes to what do we want to eat at the buffet? It comes to how do we want to spend our free time? And then I want them to walk away seeing that they do have clarity and they can reauthor the stories that are currently holding them back. And then they can microdose getting to their brief through the tiniest, most irresistible actions. They don't have to take big leaps. They don't have to quit their jobs. They don't have to divorce their partner, give their pets up for adoption. They don't have to do anything dramatic. But by microdosing your brief every day, you'll be amazed at where you are a year from now.
All right, so let's say our listener is in their car and they're taking this in, and I'm like, hey guys, pull over for a minute. Okay, I know if you're going to 70 on the highway, maybe get off the ramp and find a safe place to do this. But you're going to give them a chance to start on themselves. What's the one question? Where do you want them to start?
The first thing is to find your quiet. To have the space, to create the space, to just pause. Sit in the silence and drop out of your head and down into a deeper part of yourself. That is actually the essential practice. It's uncomfortable for most people to create a space for silence. But I will tell you, if you courageously lean into that agitation and embrace that discomfort, you will start to hear your own truth, separate from all those scripts, all those other voices, the peanut gallery, right? And it's in that place where you're going to very quickly start to connect to what you truly want.
And what happens if you're terrified by what you tell yourself?
Most people are, right? That's why I said it feels dangerous to a lot of people to ask, because when we ask and get an answer, are we accountable then to realizing that answer? And that is yes, but that is the heart. It is the essence of courage. It is the essence of not just changing yourself or changing your life, but changing everything around you. That is what courage looks like. And if it was easy, if it was comfortable, if it was convenient, and frankly, our culture is too addicted to convenience and comfort, then it's not worth having. Now, that's an easy thing to say, but I will also say that the misery of not hearing that voice, not heeding it, there's a different kind of pain that can be lifelong.
Well, I think that's the watch out, right? Like you wake up and you realize you've been doing this for a decade or 20 years, like, oh my gosh. Also, I'm curious, in our business, the business we came from, which is funny that I can't still separate myself,
We're still doing the business in different
right?
ways, applying it differently.
So there's in a subjective world full of skepticism, which is called life, exhibit A, life. I used to say that the best compliment you will ever get from somebody, in my opinion, usually is, that's actually pretty good. Okay, like
It's an honest compliment.
it is the top of the mountain. You do it once, and someone that, by the way, it tells you what they think of your bar. And I don't think this is a me thing. I think this is an all of us. That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good. And if you do it again, usually they go, that's pretty good. And if you do it again, you might get to, that's good, which is just the way we're wired. That's actually pretty good the first time. That's pretty good the second time. That's good the third time. And so as you were sharing on that little yes, or that little, like, to me, that fuck yes is when you're quiet into yourself, it's never a fuck yes. It's a small, quiet, lowercase whisper of a yes. And you're almost just, you're afraid. You're afraid of what happens if you're going to make it a capital yes. I felt like it was, and then I know it's a fuck yes, but it's almost detrimental to me walking the plank all the way. Even though it's true, it's just how we're wired. I see like, oh my gosh, how do you help people walk the plank and summon out the yes to the capital yes to the fuck yes?
It comes with practice, but it doesn't take a long time, right? As you were talking, I was just feeling what we've learned in our craft, right? In our business, our former business, however we want to talk about it, is that no one changes their behavior unless they feel something. So the lowercase yes, or more likely the maybes or the no's, because there are so many forces, right, that are convincing us to say no.
It could be a fuck no. It's
Fuck no, yeah. There's so many forces outside of our lives, inside ourselves, telling us, no, don't go there. That's, yikes, don't do that. But when you can get to fuck yes, that is the fuel that will actually get you to get up and do something different, to change, to act on it. That's why the feeling is so important, because that feeling is the fuel for transformation.
I've definitely shared this in the last 2 weeks. I was in front of a team and I was doing a keynote or a workshop, and I was sharing how the scariest keynote I've done to date was at Deloitte.
Oh, say more.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to survive this? Like, how am I going to actually, to use your word earlier, it wasn't like, how am I going to be successful? It was like, how am I going to make an impact? Right. And it dawned on me, oh my gosh, like, all right, here's how I'm going to open. Like, I can't pretend to come into this room and have the ability to outthink anybody in here. And I mean that. This isn't like a ruse, but I can't outfeel you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no behavior change without the feeling. And as you think about how you're serving your clients, it's not going to be the outthink. Deloitte's going to get hired on the outthink. What they're going to be surprised and delighted is by the outfeel. And then giving your people the ammunition and the tools to do.
And that is an illustration of you living your brief, right? You're very clear about what your superpower is. It's that feeling and making the whole room infected by that feeling, because your feeling, when you feel it, it's contagious, right? And so that's you zeroing in on your brief and bringing it into this room, which creates a dissonance that then affects and changes the room, right? And that's what we're talking about. And let's talk about think and feel. We're in the age of AI. I didn't want to bring those two letters up because
Drink. Gotta drink now.
Let's drink. But computers are doing the thinking for us. Thinking in terms of intellect, data, facts, right? Knowledge. Where's the feeling though? When we can move people, that's when we can really change them.
So again, let's start with you, listener. Like, are you moved? Are you moved by the decisions that you're making? Are you having a heart to heart with yourself? Is it a little fuck no? Is it a little no? Is it a little maybe? Is it a like what does it take to get to a fuck yes, which I love. I
Can I say
also
one more
really
thing? I would
yeah.
prefer to have a fuck no than a meh indifference
Because
because you feel something. That's when you've hit something sacred or non-negotiable inside you, right? And that is also as important as the fuck yes. But that middle meh, that is the most dangerous place to live.
the middle always is the dangerous place. You know, middle
No,
seats
no,
on
no,
a
no. We
plane.
know that
Yeah,
the
middles.
messy middle is full of juicy, juicy, juicy gifts, right? But the meh middle means you're just on autopilot, sleepwalking through your life, just doing, churning through the hours. That is the place that I find dangerous.
All right, let's turn this on Bonnie. Okay. So, like, is there a life brief you personally wrote for yourself? And you were just like, oh shit, fuck no. Or it just scared you. Even though it was a fuck yes, it started as something that was a fuck no.
Yes, that would be my marriage brief, which I call the mad love brief. And the short story is my husband asked me in the middle of a huge fight and during a period where, lots of questions, lots of doubts were happening. And he just innocuously asked me, "Are you still madly in love with me?" And that was a shocking question. And the immediate answer, it was just coming up through my body, up my throat, and almost out of my mouth, which was no, of course not. We have 4 kids. We've been married for, at that time, 18 years, whatever. And I was kind of on this rocket ship of a career, and I was traveling and I was meeting people who really inspired me and excited me. And then I'd come home and we'd have bickering arguments about, laundry, about who's going to pick up which kid and the calendar. And so the answer was absolutely no. But when I finally found space to think about it, it was fuck yes, I want mad love. I'm way too young to never experience that again, that feeling. But do I want it with my husband? Is he the one that I want it? And that became a much more complicated question. Eventually, I did get to yes. Yes, I do want it with him. But it was daunting from there because how would that be possible after all those years, all the calcified walls between us, And we had to, before we could get there, I had to take a sledgehammer to those walls. And I had to own up to some of the things that I was contributing to the fade of our marriage. And once I was able to do that, that was the invitation he needed to remove some of the things that he had put up. And it was in a very short amount of time, but we really went for it. We took that sledgehammer to some really ugly, scary stuff. And I think about 3 months later, we were celebrating our anniversary. We had my mom watching the kids. We went away for 3 days. We were at the beach, renewing our vows, and I found that feeling. It was not far away. It was hard to get to. And we made ourselves a promise then and there that this was always within reach, should we want to choose it. But we have to choose it. And that's the fuck yes.
I love the dance around today. I love we're going personal, we're going professional, we're getting really personal. My wife, we just celebrated 15 years and I think one of the big it wasn't it was unspoken but important to me was she had her reboot where she went back to school. I didn't push. I wasn't going to push, but she went back to school to be a counselor. And that curiosity kind of taught me everything I needed to know about her and how, because like that's for courage. There's no courage without curiosity.
No.
I've definitely had, right. I've had many people say, actually, rest in peace, Tony Shea. I remember when I interviewed Tony for the podcast, this is years ago. He asked me, he's like, you sure you got the title right? Is it Return on Courage or Return on Curiosity? Which, you know, says a lot about Tony too, as a human, right? As the type of way he went about his life. But I think it's that. I think like the minute you lose curiosity,
Yes.
that's when you're kind of in trouble. And I think the life brief, it's like the serpent summoning out, right? It's like, let's see what comes of this, and are we going to be honest with ourselves? Another thing, Bonnie, that you had shared that I loved is I think you said ultimately what makes creative people creative is their willingness to risk failure rather than give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, do we really need the word creative people? It's almost like what makes people, right? Is their willingness to risk failure. Like those that are going for it could be curious people, risking failure rather than giving up. What happened to us?
I think we got addicted to comfort and convenience. I do think that those are the enemies of courage and curiosity. And we are steeped in that in our society. Although right now I think we're having a reckoning around that.
I worry. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a very selfish comment, but I'm more worried about the complacency of my kids, like the video games and the like. This is their treat. Like they just want to get on screens as fast as possible, and you know, I'm like, oh, how do I nudge more curiosity without having it be a fastball? You know, like I don't want to ruse my kids either.
Well, yes, and right, we're handing them a world and a entrance into adulthood that's pretty brutal. So there's nothing that forces creativity better than despair or hardship. And I will say that at some point, each one of our kids is going to face that challenge.
But when I hear that, I mean, when I think about my own upbringing, right or wrong, I mean, I love my parents. I actually do, which is a huge victory in itself. But I was like a free range kid. Like
Me too.
I don't remember a lot of lessons coming from my parents. No disrespect, mom and dad, but like they gave me enough coverage and space where I wasn't in survival mode, where I felt like, you know, I'm going back to my, you know, my kid life, but like if someone handed me a life's version of Nintendo Power and there was a cheat code in there where I got to come out on level 5, that's my truth. But I also knew, oh shit, at some point I'm gonna have to like, it's time to go to work and like figure out how to do something, make something. Am I capable? Is that everybody? Is that normal for everyone? Because I had the awareness to at least know something had to change, or I was afraid of moving on to the next phase of my life way back when.
I think there is something very human in us that wants to know that we can be of service, that we can contribute in some way. And it doesn't have to be big, right? But that we are of use, that we are participating. I think belonging and participation and contribution, I think those are very human states and desires.
Yeah, I'm not sure I felt that at 16, 17. I think I felt fear. I felt scared. I felt like my brother was the chosen one. And then I was going to have to, like, how am I going to figure this world out when, you know, that's the horse to ride, which I'm now grateful for. And I also know it was friendly fire. It wasn't like anyone was trying to hurt me.
Yeah, well, that was
It
your
was just,
fuel, right? You saw
yeah.
your brother getting the attention that you wanted, being seen and valued for who he was, and you wanted a piece of that too. That is part of that deep desire for belonging, contribution, you know, to be a part of something and to be seen and understood for who you are.
I feel bad for everyone else. I feel like this has been a great therapy session for me. Thank you, Bonnie.
Is it therapy?
What's
I mean, I get that so much, but why is it so? I take it as a compliment, by the way,
it is. It
because
is.
I value therapy and I love it and I have it for myself. Um, but I'm just curious, why it's so hard for, and I will say, especially men, to go swim in these waters.
I mean, I won't speak for everyone else. I can only speak for myself on this one. I mean, I can try, but I'll start with me.
Yeah.
I first of all, I think therapy is almost the same branded term as elder for Modern Elder Academy. It's like the same thing. Like you hear the word and you're like, that's for other people. It must be for other people. Until you realize what we're really saying is clarity. It's the same. Do I understand how I happened and how do I design the future version of myself? I also think, and I don't know if you said this to yourself when you wrote the life brief, but like as an author now, I laugh at myself when I say the words, you write the book you need. Because the first book I needed was courage. The irony is I had to be the one that was courageous as I leaped out of the last life as we once knew. And then I thought I was done with that line, and I wrote a book about self-talk. And 80% through laughed to myself to the point of tears where I'm like, wow, I wrote the book I needed.
Yeah.
And then I helped Landon Donovan write his memoir and realized fast that, oh, wow, here we are again. His childhood, there are parallels to, he just wanted to be seen. Now, the way Landon went about it is he felt if he scored enough goals, his dad would come back.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm going to chew on that. I do think writing the book made me a better strategist because I had to unpack a lot that I learned from osmosis, right? Just by watching incredible strategists do their work. And so much of it was intuitive that by breaking it down for people really helped me understand the craft even more. And it made me a better human, I think. Um, Reflecting on the moments in my life where despair or need or rejection, pushed me into a more courageous place. And then also being able to walk in other people's shoes and hear their stories and connect the dots between all of it.
Well, I also wonder if, I mean, I don't want to create more work for you, but like if you are going to write, I mean, at the end of the life brief, again, just like in business, the brief is the brief. Like it's the journey contract on the way to something else. And so, I'm not asking you to actually write this book, but maybe the life book is I mean, we each kind of need the next component. If I have my brief, it's time to get going on the rest. And I can tell you that I think everyone should explore writing the book of their life and designing the book of their life. And I'm not just talking in metaphor terms here. Like, you can't not be clear when you purge it all out and get clear on who you are and like on how you happened and go get after it, right? And you're like, why not you? What is that story?
Yeah, I mean, writing about, like you said, the fuck yes life. Like, what does a fuck yes life look like, and how do you get there?
Way better title than the life book. Way better title. Fuck yes life. Did you get that URL? You should definitely get that URL.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
All right, Bonnie, appreciate you, folks. If you here's how I would sort of, I mean, one, I always want to honor that if you are 50 minutes in on this conversation and still here, there's a reason. I mean, there's something about this conversation that you should take notice of. Why did you choose to give 50 minutes? You could have left it 5 or 10. There's something in here that is worth exploring. 2, I really love your advice, Bonnie, of, hey, find your quiet place. What does that look like? Is it the 10 minutes before chaos ensues in your life or house? Is it a run? Is it pulling off to the side of the road and just turning off the music and just sitting with yourself? Go find your quiet space and yeah, maybe it's a fuck yes or a little yes or a fuck no. Just avoid the messy meh, and then just focus on that first move before any others. And then Bonnie, I'm going to hand it over to you. What's the last thing you want everyone to leave with today?
I think it's what we said earlier. You have more choice and agency than you have been conditioned to believe, than the world wants you to believe. It does take curiosity and courage to unlock that. But that's where your fuck yes starts.
All right, I'm reaching out. Let's write my life brief and send me an invoice for this therapy session. And all love. Go knock them dead down in New Mexico. I know you will. Have
Thank
fun
you,
with it.
Ryan. Thank you for being my friend and my favorite conversationalist.
Hey, touche and then two-way street, you know? All right, Bonnie. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.